let's talk about tonight. We have with us a number of people that are here to be of assistance with us this evening. First of all is Lucy. Lucy, you are here, and we have let's see, we have Tal here as well, and let's see if I get Tal up here on the board as well. And who else do we have here? We have David is in here also, and who are we missing at this point in time?
It's Priya.
There we go. Get you in too, Priya. Okay, Priya, there we go. We got you all in here now at this point, and you're all a part of the planning department. As I understand that Lucy, you're part of the community development plan here for the Canoga Park, Winnetka, and Woodland Hills area. That we have Paya, that you're the senior chief planner, and Tal and David, you are also part of the community planning group. You're here to help out with some of the questions that might end up showing up at this particular point too. So that said, I think that we can really pretty much turn it over to you and go ahead with it. Lucy, you're up. If you need to have any kind of screen sharing or what have you, let me know. We'll see what we can do with that. I will leave you up on the screen, and Tal and Pia and David, I will put you in the background for the present time, and as needed, we'll bring you back up. So there it is. So at this point, Lucy, you're on.
Oh, yes. I think I just need to be enabled to share my screen.
You can, and I've got a couple of quick questions for you too before you start up. Lucy, who are you?
So my name is Lucy Martinez, and I am a community planner for the Canoga Park, Winnetka, Woodland Hills, West Hills Community Plan. And I've been in the community plan update program for about 4 years.
All right. Is this plan your plan, or are you just here to talk to us and tell us about it? Or did you work on actually designing it?
Well, we've actually done a lot of background research, and
listen to me correctly. I want to know if you actually had a hand in this planning. In other words, is your neck on the line with this, or are you just going to tell us about what it's all about and answer our questions?
Oh no, I've been involved in this program, in this process.
All right, so you're good. You're taking some responsibility for what actually happened. Then is that right?
Yeah, like this team. I have been working with this team.
Okay.
John, I wonder if I could just
please go ahead.
Politely interrupt. No, because just to introduce the entire team. So I'm Priya Mahenley. I'm the senior city planner. Lucy is the project manager, the lead on this particular community plan, because for the Southwest community plans, we're updating 3. So I'm overseeing all 3. Lucy is the lead for Woodland Hills. I mean, we're talking about Woodland Hills, but of course it includes more neighborhoods than just Woodland Hills. And then Paul Steinberg is the city planner over this geography as well. So, and then David heads up our Valley long range planning. So you have the entire team here working on long range community plans in the Valley. And right now we're updating the South Valley community.
Okay, well, I guess what I want to know is who are you to be doing this? Where did it come from? What's your authorization to be doing this before we get into the plan? Because all of a sudden we got stuff that's showing up here, and you're changing the zoning in a lot of areas that are in our particular community, and there hasn't been a whole lot of input that we've had concerning that. So how did this come about?
So I wonder if we can start, because actually this is perfect segue to the beginning of the presentation, because Lucy has set out some slides just to give background exactly to answer your question, John, about why are we doing this?
That's fine. And the last of the questions is this: if those people that are listening should find that they don't like what they're hearing, or they do like what they're hearing, are you still taking input concerning that?
Absolutely.
And in essence, I guess what it comes down to, are they able to change it, modify it, or stop it if they wish to? Is that still open and available?
So we will outline where we are in the timeline. There's definitely plenty of time for input on the community plan update for sure. We're probably in the middle of the process. So this is a multi-year process, but Lucy will show you just where we are in the timeline just to get a sense of when we will go to public hearing and next steps. But in terms of the question about input, absolutely, we're taking input now. There's no deadline on input in terms of
All right, because there had been some talk before that there was a deadline on it of July, and there's no longer a deadline at this particular point as far as you're concerned, correct?
For our community plan update, there isn't. I know there were questions about the citywide housing incentive plan, right, or program, excuse me, which is a separate citywide incentive program. Lucy, again, has a couple slides just to help distinguish just our process versus a citywide process. It'll help answer the question about what the community plan is doing, because it's definitely more expansive than just housing. So there's a lot definitely to get into it. And
they, as I understand it, going to propose ordinances on that on the CHIP in July, and there'll be some hearings on that as well at that stage.
Yeah, I think that timeline for that work program is sooner than ours.
Okay.
But we can do a little bit of comparison, but happy definitely to answer questions.
I think that's important. I think it's important for everybody to understand that there's an overlay that's going on here that will have a dramatic effect. The CHIP effect is going to have much more of a building, I think, effect than what you guys are looking at as well. So, Lucy, you should have control of the screen now if you wish. Hopefully it's there for you.
Yes. So let me see. Share. Great. So okay. I guess you guys can see my screen, right? My presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Let me just move this here. I have to just make it smaller. And to just make sure that I can cover it. Okay. So again, welcome to this presentation of the Southwest Valley Community Plan Update. In this presentation, we're actually going to go through, we're going to have 3 different sections. So the first one is going to be a brief overview. And this is where we're going to be able to answer some of those questions that you had. And then on the second part, we're going to go over the land use and zoning proposals. And then at the end, we can have a section for questions. And I would just ask you to wait because probably a lot of your questions are going to be addressed in the slides. So I think that might be a most effective use of our time. So first, I want to start by explaining what is a community plan. So actually, the state of California mandates cities to have general plans. And the general plans have actually different elements to it, like there's conservation, open space, and one of them is the land use element. And in the city of LA, the land use element is composed of 35 community plans. And we do this so that we can actually plan more at the neighborhood level. We actually periodically update these plans so that they actually are effective tools for guiding growth and development. And what these actually also have, they contain policies that, that for the future vision of these neighborhoods. So there's actually 3 deliverables that we have as part of the community plan. So first is the community plan text. And so here's where you find the goals and policies and also the programs that guide kind of like the land use and the zoning. And then the second one, there's a land use map, which actually has the general plan land use designations allowed within the community. And then you have it for each, also it actually shows the land use for each parcel in the city. And then the last one is the implementation, which is actually the zoning. And so this is actually shown as a zoning map in the end, and then you have zoning for each parcel within the community plan. So here, what you can see here, it's kind of like the process of the community plan update. So there's actually 5 stages of this plan, and we actually started back in 2017. And currently we are in the middle stage, which is the consult. And so some of the things that we have done is that we shared the general plan land use designations. And on this time, we're actually sharing the zoning, the proposed zoning. And then after this, we will begin the environmental impact report, the draft of it after following this portion of outreach. And then once with all the feedback that we receive, that's going to help us go into the next stage, which is the finalized stage. And in this one, we will make any necessary revisions to the draft general land use map or to the draft zoning map, or to the policy document, and also the environmental impact report is published. And then there is a comment it's a period for comment, for public comment. Once we have that, then we will move on to the adoption stage. And so this is where we actually kind of share all these proposals and background work, everything to your decision makers, which are the City Planning Commission, the Planning Land Use Management Committee, and the City Council, which will be voting on these proposals. And during the last stage, there's a number of hearings in which you're actually also able to participate and provide feedback. So in this next stage, you can actually see how we have actually been involved in outreach throughout the years, and these will continue until the end when this plan is finally adopted. So just to provide just a very brief background on the community plan, this is actually a very diverse area. So we do have about 20% of the population is under 18 years old. 23% is between 18 and 24. About 35% are between 35 and 54. And then 21 of the population are over 55 years old. And then we're also very diverse racially and ethnically. So we have about 42% of the community plan is white, 32% is Latino, about 5% is Black, and 50% is Asian. So we are kind of planning for very diverse community and also different age groups and generations. This slide would actually gives you a little bit of an idea of kind of like the state of housing, some of the things that are also kind of creating kind of this need for more housing. So one of them is that here up to the right, you can actually see the housing that has been built in the community plan. So most of the housing was actually built between the 50s and the 80s, and then it has really dramatically reduced after the 90s, and it has been reduced much more in the last 5 years. And then also rents have actually really increased a lot. So right now we have that the median rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is $3,000. So that means that for somebody to not be rent burdened, they would actually have to set aside about 30% of their income in housing. But in order to do that, that will mean that the household will have to have an income of $120,000 or more per year. So that's a very small portion of the population. So a lot of people are rent burdened throughout the city and in this community plan. And then we're just going to go over some considerations in some of the draft proposals. So first, I want to explain that one of the things that is happening with this community plan update is that we are implementing the new zoning code. So what happens is that the zoning is going to look different than what it looks today. So now the zoning is going to be in 5 different districts. So we will have a form district that is going to be, so each parcel is going to have a zoning string. And each zoning string actually kind of holds the regulations for different elements. So the form, it's about the building. So this is where you will find the FAR, the height, and kind of the massing that the buildings can have. The frontage, it actually deals more with the architectural design of buildings and the relationship between the building and the street. And the development standards, this is where you will find your landscape requirements, where you will find the parking required on site. And then your uses, it's actually what would actually show what are the permitted uses in a parcel. And then the density will show like the how many housing units are permitted in just like each parcel. Also, something that is being accomplished, the community plan, is actually that some of the overlays are going to be kind of, they will no longer exist because they're actually going to exist within the base zoning. So this will actually help kind of more transparency in kind of like you much easily know what you can build on a site instead of having to juggle between, a specific plan and in the base zoning. So that will be the case for the Canoga Park community design overlays and also the Girard track. So whatever remains from those plans is going to be just found in the base zoning. And then there's some of them that will remain just exactly as they exist today. And that includes the Warner Center specific plan. So there's no changes there. And also the Mulholland specific plan. There's also no changes there. And then the Valley Circle Scenic Corridor specific plan will remain as they are. And then the Ventura Cahuenga specific plan is actually everything that has to do with the zoning itself is actually will be found on the zoning string. So it will be in the base zoning. And then there will be certain elements that will still remain in the specific plan, like the transportation fees. So part of the specific plan will remain in that way, but everything that has to do with what can you build would actually be found in that in the base zoning. Another thing that is being accomplished through the community plan is kind of to make sure that each parcel only has one zoning. As of today, sometimes we have some sites that have 2 general land uses or 2 zonings. And then there's also the cases where you have parcels like the image that you see on the left. So you have everything in gray is like a parking zone. So the only thing that you can have in those areas is parking. And then everything that is in red is the commercial zoning. So now moving forward, each parcel is going to have one zoning and one general plan land use. And then just so to explain, this does not mean that like parking will not be required on the site. It just means that it's not going to be kind of found like that, but it would actually be found in the development standards in that district in the new zoning. And then also as part of the community plan, these are some of the guiding principles that we kind of want to accomplish through it. So one of it is to create complete neighborhoods, increase the variety of housing options and affordability, create a network of safe and accessible streets, support a range of economic opportunities, promote new passive and recreational open spaces, foster climate resilience and sustainability, promote stewardship of natural ecosystem, and then also elevate design expectations in all projects. Now, here we just also want to explain a little bit of the difference between the CHIP program, the housing element, and the community plan. So, the CHIP program is not going to change the zoning. It's like an incentive-based program. That it allows mixed income and also affordable housing projects. And the way that they usually works is that they're based on the proximity to opportunity areas, corridors, and transits. And also this one will be adopted before the community plan update is adopted. A community plan it's more of a long-range plan. So we actually look at the various needs within a community plan. So that includes housing, but it also includes jobs, open space, mobility, and because as I explained before, then we're going to be implementing the new zoning code, also, but one of the things that is going to happen is that once the CHIP is adopted, then we will have to align our incentives with CHIP. And then also something that is sometimes maybe people ask like, well, what also is the benefit of this? Not only is that it is a long range tool that it just looks about what are going to be our needs as a community for the next 20 years, but it also is going to help us kind of have like better design projects. So today the zoning is actually very basic in terms of that it only tells you how high you can build or of the FAR, but most sites don't have any tools for architectural design. So what happens is that once we have the community plan, coming in and we have the new zoning, there's actually additional requirements, especially in terms of design on like how would you interact when you actually you're as a pedestrian in those areas. What is the location of the building? You know, we deal a lot more with context in different areas. So in the end, what happened is that the product that you will have in the end is gonna align better with the goals of the community plan, and I think it's gonna be better designed for the community. So in this slide right here, this just includes the proposed change areas, which is mostly areas that are experiencing changes in FAR and height. So this is for the entire community plan. But now we're gonna focus on Woodland Hills. So these are like the different land uses that I'm gonna cover today, that this is the ones that are experiencing some changes. And so first we're gonna go over the community center land use. So there's two strategies for the community center. And the first one is actually being applied on lots that are located north of Ventura Boulevard and south of the freeway. These are sites that are very large, that have access to transit. They're close to employment centers. And so all of these lots are actually commercially zoned already. So some of the land use are community, general, or neighborhood commercial, and they have commercial zones or P zones. And the FAR ranges between 1 to 1.5, and the height goes up to 45 feet.
Lucy, if you could, instead of using the initials, a lot of people don't know what the FARs are, for example. Would you define those whenever you come up with those initials on things so people know what you're talking about?
Yes. So the FAR stands for floor area ratio. And what it is, for example, if you have a 1 here, it tells you that if you have a lot that is 5,000 square feet, then a 1 means that you can have 5,000 square feet on that lot. And it could be in 1 story, it could be in 2 stories, but you would be limited to that. So if it's a 2 FAR, then you will get twice the lot size. That's basically how much floor area you can have. Yeah, so hopefully that explains that. And then the proposal here, this is kind of like the largest proposal that we have. And so we have that the base FAR is going to be 1.5, is proposed as 1.5. But then the height is actually being lowered to 3 at the base. And then for the bonus, then it could go up to a 5 FAR and a height of 8 stories. And so we actually kind of look at the existing land uses also, and we're actually thinking about making sure that the residents have access to all the different kind of services and uses that you need. So for example, we do have to allow some auto-oriented uses, because you don't want to have to, like, if your car breaks down, you don't want to have to drive all the way to Canoga Park to the industrial area to go to services. So they're actually allowed in some areas. So to the top, the image on the top, these are areas that are allowing community center and neighborhood serving uses. But and existing auto-oriented uses can remain, but no new ones could be introduced. And so the emphasis on that area is really to create, make very pedestrian friendly areas. And then the area kind of east of Winnetka, there's actually some existing auto-oriented uses. So we're going to continue to allow those kind of uses in that area. So you will have community serving, neighborhood serving, and also some auto-oriented uses. But it's more like, the auto shop, the gas station, the car wash, kind of some of the ones that exist today. And so these are some of the existing development that you have here in this area where this is actually being proposed. So you have offices, you have large scale multifamily developments, and then you have some auto-oriented uses. And then the goal for these areas is to allow for a mix of employment, commercial, and residential uses, creating also opportunities for housing in higher resource areas. And so in the areas that is more focused for pedestrian orientation, there's a lot of emphasis on the design on the ground floor. So we actually encourage active uses on the ground floor. We require direct pedestrian access from the street into the building, more window transparency in the ground floor. We also do not allow any parking next to the street. They will actually have to be located in another kind of behind the building or in another area that is not exactly by the street, so that we can make kind of the development to be more pedestrian friendly and also safer for pedestrians. And then on Winnetka to Corbin, where we're allowing those auto-oriented uses as well, we actually are providing a little bit more flexibility for, to kind of accommodate these uses that are a little bit different. And then one of the goals of Ventura Boulevard is to make it a more kind of safer for pedestrians. So, for example, we're not allowing any new drive-throughs, and we're limiting kind of like automobile access to limit the number of automobile curbs along the boulevard. So whenever the sites can actually have access through the alley or a side street, that's where access will be required on those sites. Now here, what we want to explain is like a little bit first, like you can see the difference between what you can build at the base. So that's in the yellow box, and then what can be reached with the bonus. And that is what is in orange. And there's actually two ways in which projects can make use of the bonus FAR. So one of them is to create residential and mixed-use projects. So in order for them to get this bonus, they will have to provide a percentage of the units to be set aside for affordable housing. So that's one of the strategies. The other strategy is this is actually for projects that are not going to provide any housing, but instead they can provide a community benefits for the community. So one of them is actually to provide a publicly accessible open space. So this is just a hypothetical example, but it actually kind of encourages them to provide spaces for the community so they can go like gather, and it will be like a public benefit for the community.
Lucy, these bonuses are coming out of the CHIP program, is that correct?
No, these are actually the community plan. These are from the community plan only.
Very good.
Yeah. And then also there's other public benefits that they can also provide. For example, they can provide daycare facilities. They can provide small scale tenant spaces to support small commercial owners. And then also maybe providing full service grocery stores. And then now there's another, the other proposal for the community center land use, because this is being more widely used. And these are sites that have more of an adjacency sometimes to lower density areas, or maybe commercial corners that also are a little bit more adjacent to kind of lower density areas. So these ones are also currently commercially zoned. And then the FAR ranges between 1 and 1.5. And then if they're along Ventura requires a 10-foot step back in some of the areas. And the land use here, the base FAR is going to be lowered to, is actually going to be 1.5. And the height is being lowered to 3 stories. And then, but the bonus can be 3 FAR and the height of 5 stories. But one of the things is that we are actually introducing a transitional height requirement to make sure that there's a better transition with the lower density that is next to it. And I'm going to show this in a coming slide. So these are some of the kind of like the existing conditions. This is the first one is along Ventura. So we do see some offices, some like there's a bowling alley. We have some larger multifamily projects with some offices, and we even have like a storage area. So sometimes, you know, that's kind of the pattern that is in some of those areas in Ventura. And this is a little bit of what the development patterns are in the commercial corners. So we have some of them that have like the big box stores. We still have like some large multifamily developments. And then we have like a mix of kind of smaller businesses, but we even have some larger scale commercial areas in some commercial corners. So here, the goal of this one is to allow a mix of commercial uses that meet the needs of residents. So that's why we make sure that that you have a mix of uses that provide neighborhood, community, and in some areas where there's existing auto-oriented uses, we allow those to remain. So again, so that you don't have to drive so far to get to what you need. And so based on the context, we can provide more flexibility to make sure that we kind of look at the different contexts in different areas. This is an example of what the transitional height could look like. So to the right, and the transitional height is actually triggered whenever they're adjacent to a zone, a parcel that has a height of 4 stories or less. So this is what will be required if they're adjacent to a site that has a height of 3 stories. So then they will have, like if they're abutting, they will have to have a setback of 10 feet, and then they can only go 3 stories for about 30 feet. And then after that, they can go to 5 stories for the next 20 feet. And then they can have like the full height after that. But that's kind of like something that will be triggered anytime that these particular, that these community center sites are adjacent to anything that has a height of 4 or less stories. Now, the last, not the last, but the next land use that we have is the village land use. This is actually being proposed in the area for the Reimagine Ventura area. So again, these are mostly commercially zoned lots. But then we also included some of the multifamily R3 zones that are like adjacent to it. So if in the future there's any development, it could be more cohesive. So the FAR here existing, it ranges from 1 to 3, and then there's a height of 45 feet. And along Ventura, there's a step back of 10 feet after 25 feet. And then what is proposed here, it's a 1.5 base FAR with, again, a lower height of 3 stories, and the bonus FAR of 3 and the height of 5 stories when it's the bonus. And again, the transitional requirements will still apply whenever adjacent to lower heights. And these are some of the existing development in this area. So we do have like some, you know, kind of like smaller offices and some, a mix of commercial uses. Here, because we kind of want to support the vision of Reimagine Ventura, we actually, everything about this particular land use is pedestrian oriented, and it's really focusing in not only creating like a safer environment for pedestrians, but it's actually that it will be like a lively and more inviting. So everything about it, the design, how much transparency, kind of like the interaction of the building with the street. And we also even require wrap parking. So that means that they cannot have parking structures next to it. They actually have to have active uses along the street. And then one of the elements here, because we want to allow that village feel to kind of be created here, we're requiring a step back. It could be at the first or the second story. And so what happens is that when you do that, when you are at the pedestrian level, you're kind of just experiencing that kind of like the shops and you know, like the cafe is like, it's more that commercial village feel that we're going for here. And then also the uses that we're allowing here just kind of support that. Hopefully will become a destination for Woodland Hills. So the next community land use is the neighborhood center, and this is being applied in areas that those commercial corners that are actually much smaller. So again, these are existing commercial areas that have a C and a P zone, and the FAR ranges between 0.5 to 1.5 with heights of 45. And then the base FAR is 1.5 with the base height again that is lower at 3. But the bonus FAR can go up to 3 and the bonus height up to 5. And again, transitional heights whenever they adjacent to lower heights. These are kind of some existing development patterns that you can see. So you have more like the strip mall, the commercial in the commercial corners right here. And this is like actually an example of something that could be built with the bonus in these areas. And so one of the goals of these, the intent for these areas is yes, to allow for opportunities for housing in these areas, but also kind of making sure that the residents that live near that commercial corner have access to everyday commercial goods and services that they would need. So one of the elements here is that we only allow neighborhood serving uses, and then there's a tenant size limit to make sure that you have like a greater number of businesses in one area so that you have more services near you. And then one of the benefits of this new zoning code that we have is that it really allows us to be more sensible to different contexts. So for example, in these areas that are commercial corners that are more in these areas that we're going to have both people maybe walking here, but maybe people also driving, there's a balance between, you know, of pedestrian and automobile access to these sites. Now, moving on to the residential land uses, this is for the medium on residential land use, and this is actually being proposed in existing multifamily areas that are also kind of medium residential. So the existing FARs are 3 to 1 and the heights of 45 feet. And the proposal is actually the base is being lowered to 1.5 and the height is being also lowered to 3. This is also a little bit of a kind of help to preserve these areas. And because I think they already provide housing that is even more kind of like maybe even naturally affordable. And then, but then at the bonus, they can go again up to 3 and the height will be 5 stories. And then something that is being new about this one is that now we actually also allow, require transitional heights for these ones, because today transitional height only applies in the existing code when you have commercial adjacent to single family, but now we will also have a transitional height requirement when you have kind of like high multifamily next to districts that have lower heights. And this is also kind of like some showing the existing development pattern. So we do have in this area kind of like larger multifamily developments. And again, the intent here is really to maintain the existing multifamily areas and really kind of improve walkability and design for this. And then just moving on to like these, the final land uses, and these are the low medium residential is actually applied in 2 different ways. So one is for the existing multifamily areas that are for like the RD zones and the R2 zones that are a little bit more like lower scale. So these areas have an FAR of 3 and a height of 45 feet. And then it's also being applied in like some areas that are like adjacent to commercial areas that today are single family. And that's to kind of create a transition between that commercial and the lower density. And in those areas, the FAR ranges between 0.25 to 0.45, and they have a height of 35 to 36 feet. And the proposed land use here is actually FAR, which is graduated, and I'm going to explain what that is right now. And the height will be 3 stories, and then the density allowed will be 1 to 4 units per lot. So this is what like graduated FAR looks like. So it's actually based on the number of units that you have on site. And again, here you would only have only up to 4. And so if you just have 1 unit, you can have 0.55 FAR. If you have 2, it will be 0.65. You have 3 is 1. And if you have 4, then the max that you FAR that you will have will be 1.15, which in some areas is actually less than what is allowed today. And that is also because if you see here, these areas are developed as in many occasions with multifamily, but it's a little bit more kind of like lower scale. So we will be able to kind of maintain that scale. And it's also kind of that could be transitional, as you can see below, some areas that you're like next to the commercial, and then you can create that transition, and then you can move to the lower density. And this is just like a hypothetical example of how it could actually look like. So what this will help us to have is to have just some low scale multifamily housing that, will have building scale regulations to make sure that it's kind of like lower scale, but this could also really create home ownership opportunities in the community plan. Now the next land use is very similar in scale, but this actually includes a small component for commercial uses, but it's actually very limited. So there's two ways in which this is being applied. So one, they're being applied on existing single family corridors that are alley accessed, that they're alley loaded, I'm sorry. And they're usually like very kind of like avenues or boulevards. So you have like Victory Boulevard and Banoan. And so the existing zone there is usually RS with an FAR 0.45 and a height of 33 feet. And then south of Ventura Boulevard, it is proposed about along Topanga Canyon. And that is because that is the only area that you could add a little bit more of these kind of like lower scale housing. Because if you see, everything that is in yellow actually is the hillside area. So that is the only area that it would actually allow these kind of these proposals. So here again, like the same before, you have a graduated FAR, the way that it was shown, that you can only have up to 4 units in these areas. The height will be limited to 3, and then this includes allows residential, but also a kind of a more limited commercial uses in order to kind of bring these services closer to where people live. Because as of right now, anybody that lives in the hillside, they will have to go up north all the way to Ventura to get their services. But this one would actually allow many of the residents to actually walk to this area. So these are some of the existing development patterns. So the one on the north is that you have the Topanga Canyon, and then the one, the lower one actually shows Victory Boulevard. So this is just a close-up of some of the areas where this is being proposed. So actually Topanga Canyon is actually zoned R2, which allows 2 units per lot. And the FAR today is 3 FAR and a height of 33 feet are allowed. But the proposal, it does allow up to 4 units, but the FAR, as I showed before in the graduate FAR, would only go up to 1.15. And then, and again, that will be the 3 stories. And then it allows those commercial uses. And I just want to kind of like, because sometimes there's been questions like, about kind of like these commercial sites done on Topanga Canyon. So this is one of the commercial corners, which is actually being proposed as neighborhood commercial. But I wanted to explain how this would happen. So even though the bonus height here can be up to 3 FAR and a height of 5 stories, because it's adjacent. If you see to the north, the south, and then on both sides, you have districts that have a height of 3 stories or less. They were gonna have to have transitional height on each side. So for example, this one here on the right here, it would actually be, the scale of it will be limited because it is adjacent to those sites. Again, so the kind of the intent for this one is to allow for low scale housing developments, but also, and also this particular development can really have the potential to provide home ownership opportunities. And also the goal is to provide also some limited small scale commercial uses. So it will be more like it will be like a small cafe, like maybe a small gym. And because these commercial uses are very limited, they're not like a commercial area. So they're limited in how big they can be. They can only be up to 1,500 square feet. Also, the type of uses, they're very limited. The location, they can only be on the ground floor. And they also have limited hours of operation. So it's really to kind of like provide these uses at a walkable distance to the people that live on the hillside, so they don't have to travel that far.
Again, Lucy, would you please help us with
Sure.
the FAR again? There are some people that are confused about this FAR. And again, whenever that
Yes.
comes up, if you use the actual names for it as opposed to the initials, I think you'll help us all understand it a bit better.
Okay, so yeah, so the FAR is the floor area ratio. So for example, in this one, that you have, so if you have one unit, you would, and you have a 5,000 square foot lot, you can only build, let me see if I can, like basically you will multiply the lot size by that number. So, let me just say that you have a 5,000 square foot lot and you're allowed 0.55 FAR, that will be about 2,500 square feet, like a building.
That's what you can put on that particular lot. That's what the FAR is all about. But if you could,
Yeah.
every time that comes up, give them, make sure we understand what that's all about, especially when we start looking at the bonuses.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, so basically, like if you guys have 4 units, the maximum that you will be able to build is like 1 time the lot size plus 0.15 more from that. So say that if it was to occupy the entire lot, you would only have like 1 story and a half, less than a story and a half. If you were wanted to look that way, but sometimes we want to have a little bit open space, so maybe you go up to 2 stories. So hopefully that explains better. Yes, and so we just also want to share that we do have an interactive map in our website. So if you go here to our website, this is what it looks like on the right. And then right here where you see these little box, it says draft interactive zoning map. So if you click on that, you're actually even able to search by crossing streets or address. And then once you see that, you can see the proposal, you could click on it and it gives you all the information, the existing zoning, and it also gives you information to the proposed zoning. So that is definitely available. And so this is a little bit what it looks like. So if you can see right here on the right, you can click on these links and it will give you more information about what that means. And so I know, because if in case your questions don't get answered here, there's other ways to still be engaged with us and provide us feedback. So a big one is that we have office hours. And so you actually just go to our website, and then there's actually one that it says office hours right there. You click, you put your name, you choose the time, submit, and then we can have a meeting directly with one of our teams members, and then we can address your questions there. You can also provide your comments via email, and we also have a feedback form in our website. But again, your feedback is welcome, and you can give it from now all the way until the adoption time. So we can move on to questions.
Okay, very good, Lucy. I deeply appreciate that. Let's go ahead, unless you need the screen, we'll get rid of the screen at this point in time, unless there's something there that's needed. There we go. Good, thank you. The issues I think that are coming up, especially from some that live out here, back up. One of the questions do you live here in this community?
Yes, I am. I lived in Woodland Hills for almost 3 years, and I've been in the Southwest Valley for probably more than 20 at this point.
Do you live out here? Do you live out here now?
I just moved.
Where do you live at now? What part of the state?
I moved to Simi Valley. I really wanted to buy in West Hills, but it didn't happen.
Does any of your other team live out here in the Woodland Hills area?
I think most of us live in the city.
Most of you in the city. Again, that's sort of what's concerning some people, is that you're going to change our community out here, and especially when we start looking at Topanga. Topanga, from Ventura all the way up to Mulholland, is causes some people some concern. Me, I'm one of them. That particular area has been sort of a precious area. It's basically single family homes now. We don't have multi, even though it's an R2. There's not really multi homes that are in that location. And if you do what you're planning on doing, it's going to change everything there. All those people that presently living in a single family home are going to be gone. And that whole area is just going to be nothing but just a major corridor of rental apartments. And that and with all these bonuses now that we have through the CHIP programs, there may not be as much parking in those locations as what we expect. So there's some real concerns about that, and I think we're going to have to take a look at it. Dennis, you've got some questions. You're a board member and an architect. Go ahead with your question, sir.
Okay, can you hear me? Am I muted? No, I'm not.
You can. No, you're good.
Yep. Okay, so first thing is, as I was looking at the Topanga Boulevard and your transitional ideas, massing and things, we were looking at the houses in the back of these buildings, right? The single family neighborhoods. I'm thinking about the areas that are in transition. In other words, what about the single family houses that are on the sides of these buildings that are being proposed? Are all of a sudden you got transition and three sides and you can't build a building, right? So that's it. But yet if you don't require it, you're infringing on the folks that are right on Topanga Boulevard that are single family resident folks, right? And have you thought about that? Because again, there's what John's talking about. It's going to be a sea of apartment buildings or, courtyard housing and those kinds of things. But not every site will be developed, and not every site will be developed over the next 5 years. It could be 30 years from now. And you've just infringed on those folks, their privacy. You know what I'm so if you could answer that question, that's an interesting issue that I was noticing as you were talking, Lucy.
Well, the thing is that the existing zoning actually allows for more, because the FAR today is 3 FAR.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, technically anybody could build a bigger house there.
Yes.
And I think that with these new form, you could actually protect the scale a lot more, because you would only have like a maximum of 1.15 FAR. So you might have the units, but then the scale I think will be, I guess, more, that what the current zone actually allows.
Well, Lucy, what seems to be going on again with all this is that you're trying to get rid of all the single family homes out here. And that seems to be the mantra that's going on with the entire city. And that's certainly what we're seeing there. Why not turn around then and say, oh, listen, that's a very nice protected area. Why don't we make it a higher restriction? Let's make it all R1 so they can't build anything higher at that location. Let's give us some kind of real good breathing room and have some areas that are specialized areas that we can and have those single family homes that can be, separated out and actually have lawns and not have people on top of each other, people staring at us outside of their balconies from these complexes.
Maybe I just can offer, I think if we just focus in on Topanga, because that's currently R2, right? So it might be, there's a combination. I think there's some duplexes and some of the duplexes, right there, the second unit is at the rear. So at the street level from Topanga appears like single family. So right now that is not single family. And I just want to offer, when we look at this idea of downzoning, there is with state law of it's SB 330. Yeah, in terms of downzoning, there's a lot more qualifications of what we have to factor into downzoning. So downzoning this area, I think just even looking at where it's located, Topanga is governed by Caltrans, right? It's multi-lane. So I don't know if necessarily that is the best qualification for a downzone for R1. And, I think when we are looking at some of the R1 zoned areas that Lucy had presented, specifically Victory, there are qualifications if it's like alley loaded, fronting major avenues. I don't think, it's a very careful consideration rather than just looking at a large single family neighborhood saying, oh, this is a good qualifications for upzoning. I don't think that is our approach at all through the community plan update. But I just wanted to point out just some limitations we have also with some of the state
There's some of the state
requirements
mandates,
in
and
terms of.
we're struggling with some of that as well. Marty, you've got some questions. Go
Hey,
ahead.
John,
Yeah,
hey,
go ahead,
John,
Dennis.
I had a few more questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead. Marty, after Dennis. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One, Priya, you just mentioned that these up zones that you're proposing, the 3 to 5 to 8 story areas. I was looking at them. There's plenty of them that are not adjacent to alleys. If you can I share my screen for a second, John?
Yeah, you can. Let me grab you in here. Go ahead. You should be able to share it now.
Okay, thank you.
Or maybe, there you go.
Can you see it?
It's I just see. There we go. You got it.
So, there's areas along. If you can see my hand, my cursor or whatever, my hand there. There's areas where there's not alleys necessarily, right? And you have large lots that could be developed, and you're infringing on residential neighborhoods and people's backyards and things, right? With an 8-story building looking down. And I know you have the transition, but there's nothing saying that those wings that you were showing aren't going to have windows and balconies looking out at the folks' backyards. It's quite a change for these folks, to take a look at that kind of stuff. I'm looking around here. You were talking about even coming over into this area and having transitions and things. Again, it's like it's Santa Monica and Glendale. They're going to have these little bungalows, and then you're going to have a 4-story, in a 4-unit apartment sitting there looking over people's backyards.
Well, first to clarify, the 8 stories are only proposed north of Ventura Boulevard, and they're kind of like in the freeway.
Yeah, all this stuff,
north.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Sure.
don't have any 8-story next to single family today. So
But even 5, right? But even 5 is quite a change for these folks.
I think that that's kind of the idea of the transitional height, because what happened is that you cannot have more than 3 stories next to those areas. And then whenever there's no alley, then there's that extra 10-foot setback I'm sorry, from before the building. So I think that's what we were thinking about, having that transitional height as a way to kind of help that adjacency.
I'm really responding. I'm speaking for our community. We've heard comments, about this particular issue. And so that's why I need to communicate it to you guys. And we're taking a look at, these are the kind of folks right here along these areas here that get affected, and one of the neighborhood council folks that represents this area over here specifically said in a meeting just recently that he's very concerned about this, these kinds of things, so and again, it's that piecemeal development that happens right over time, where it's not just all going to be transition. There's going to be, it's a mishmash of existing buildings, because things don't just happen immediately. They happen over 40 years.
And it's the character of our neighborhoods that are being changed on this too. That's really caused us concerns. Dennis, more questions? Are we on to Marty?
Yeah, no, I do have. I have a couple more. I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it short for myself.
Okay.
Minor detail: the drive-throughs. Kind of like the auto service areas. We actually already nixed the drive-throughs in Warner Center, and now if we take them out of Ventura Boulevard, it's not the healthiest lifestyle, right? But just saying, they got to be somewhere, and and discouraging business isn't the best issue either. We have problems, with our in and out queuing and things like that, but they can be overcome, and it's a service. And so you may want to look at that just like the auto dealerships and say, or the auto service areas, and just say, hey, look, maybe in some spots it's okay. The existing Ventura Boulevard specific plan had pedestrian oriented areas, but it also had areas that weren't that way. right? So I'm just giving you a suggestion on that. The other thing, going from 5 stories or 3 to 5 stories to 8 stories, and there's these incentives. How many incentives do these developers need to make to get to 8 stories? Is it graduated? Is it simply just, oh, I'll just line the street with 4 retail spaces and now I can go up to 8 stories? How does that work?
That's something we're talking through a bit more in terms of the non-residential incentives. It's not like the full, you get the maximum bonus. It's trying to figure out based on like what type of use is an amenity. Let's say it's a childcare facility, right? That's something that we're working out right now. So I don't have the answer at this point. We still have a ways away to flesh out some of those details. But Dennis, to your point, it's not like you provide a 5,000 square foot daycare center and then you get the full.
That's the concern is because we see it happening, right? Where that could happen if somebody's works around things, right?
What else
one more, and then I'll let it go. I took a look at the zoning code and the definition of open space, and you guys need to provide more detail, and because a lot of things can happen with a definition of open space. I believe you can. You said there was a written part of this community plan, and I think there's a thing called the community plan implementation overlay, where you could define some of these incentives a little bit better than what the zoning code has. And I'll get into this quickly. The publicly accessible open space in Warner Center, folks were allowed to use the fire access lanes, the setbacks, and when you drive down the street right now, you look at these buildings and you go, "Where's the open space?" There isn't any, you know. So if you're going to actually let somebody go up 3 stories or 5 stories more, you really got to have, real community benefits that people can see and enjoy. Anyway, that's it.
Dennis, I'd love to follow up with you on a particular case that we could take a closer look at in Warner Center, of just seeing how the regulations played out and actually what was built and maybe the unintended consequences of the way it was written.
No problem, Priya. Just email me and then we can deal with those things.
Marty, you're up. Diana, Susan, Brian, and Chris will get to your questions in a bit. Marty, go ahead. You're up.
Yeah, let me just ask a couple of quick questions, hopefully. Can you guys hear me? Because my microphone
we're good.
Pretty bad. First, looking at the plans for the southern part of Topanga Canyon Boulevard, and allowing up to, what was it, 5 to 8 stories along that strip? No?
No, it's the low neighborhood only allows up to 3 stories.
3 stories.
Yeah, and even there's a small commercial corner there, and it's that one only goes up to 5, but I think because of the transitional height requirements, that's gonna kind of like limit how high it can really go.
First thing is, what came out from my listening to many of the other times that you've made presentations on this, there's the secret book of allowances, okay? The chip bonus. And if they use those chip bonuses there, you could have, yes or no, you could have blocks of 3, 4, 5-story buildings, not just along Topanga, but going into those residential areas. Yes or no?
So I think that the chip, and maybe we should clear that up too, because the slide that Lucy had in the beginning is the chip incentive program will come before our community plan. So that's at a different track. And we can follow up after this meeting to share the chip website. They have some maps, and maybe you've already seen them, Marty,
Yes.
But Dennis, you've seen them. So I think that portion on Topanga is considered, I might misspeak, so please anyone correct me if I'm wrong from the team, an opportunity corridor 1. which allows through the bonus up to 5 stories, I believe. So just to clarify, I don't think it's 8, but that is through a separate incentive program. So,
But that's not just on Topanga. I'm also asking about the blocks that are right in back of it, because that's the transitional height, right?
I think the incentives and the 5-story only applies to the properties fronting Topanga that are zoned today R2. So I don't believe the maps capture any of the R1 zoned properties to either side of, east or west of Topanga.
But you can't guarantee that right now, okay, to anybody that's listening in, because this chip program and all the bonuses and all the foolishness that's going along with it has not been fully explained and laid out for everything. So you're showing us like a magic act, and I can't see the magician's other hand, and which is the chip, and that's the problem. I'm following and I see what you're doing up front in front of me, but the real fly in the ointment here is what's happening behind that I can't see, that the magician is hiding. And I think that's going to be bothering a lot of people as they hear more and more about this community plan, because it's not fully 100% complete. We're waiting on the chip group to come out with their Ouija board and whatever to tell us exactly what they've got planned. But so far, not one word on it has come out. And I think that's a huge problem for planning. So you're telling people, well, you'll be safe, it'll be okay. And then all of a sudden, we have this other plan that's coming out. It's in the dark. Nobody knows about it. Nobody knows the specifics. And it's going to change everything. I don't understand who put this together like this and who they think they're going to be fooling, because the city's going to be tied up in lawsuits for the next 50 years. And it's idiotic. It really is. And if Mr. Bertoni is listening, just by chance, he should start paying attention to this, because this is no way to run a planning department.
Marty, let's get some more questions. I think they know that we're not terribly happy about this particular procedure. So Diane Williams.
No, I'm not. And the same thing actually goes towards that the building on along Victory Boulevard, which is 100% solid single family homes, and it just does. Why there? It's not an opportunity. There's no buses really. It's just there's no mass transit.
Marty, let's get some questions from our audience.
All right, let's do that.
Diana Williams, go ahead.
Thank you, John, and thank you so much for presenting this tonight. This is great. I'm Diana Williams. I am a resident of Woodland Hills here in the neighborhood for 25 years. And we call this street Topanga Alternate because it's right next to Topanga. And I do believe that it would make some.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I knocked you out there. My mistake. Put your hand back up again. I think I muted you out. My apologies. There we go. Diane, I think I put you back in.
Hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. How much of that did you hear? Any of it?
Yes, we did with the first
The
beginning.
Topanga Alternate.
Then I kicked you out.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. So I have 2 questions. The first one is the zoning changes to Girard Tract. I'd like to find out if there's a link or an area that I can take a closer look at to what those zoning changes are being proposed to the Girard Tract. And is there a link or a site that I can go to see that? That's my first question. Lucy or?
Well, it's just good that that Girard Tract is actually very small, and really its scope is actually very small.
Listen
Okay.
to a question.
Yeah, but
She wants to be able to go there. I live in that track too, and it's a very important track. We have some very good restrictions that are there. She wants to know if there's some place that she can go to look at what you're proposing as to eliminating that track.
Where I used to live.
Yeah, we can follow up. We have an interactive zoning map, so we're happy to follow up with the direct
Okay,
link. That
thank
has
you,
more
because
information.
that isn't a small issue as far as I'm concerned. Any zoning changes to Girard Tract are important. And then my second question is, with the bonus floor area ratio, right here, where many of us have a beautiful view of the sunset and different things, what is the maximum height? Again, I've heard three stories, 5 stories. What would the maximum height be for that bonus FAR on Topanga
Well,
here in like the 5300 block area?
well, the lots that are proposed to be low neighborhood, they actually they don't have bonuses. It's just three stories, and
Okay.
then that the FAR is based on the units up to 4. That will be like 1.15, and there's no bonuses there.
Okay, so they're not talking about a 5-story building there.
So maybe
not
just
for
to
the community
clarify,
plan.
and
No,
and this is it, and maybe this is a fair point because we have our community plan. We've been in the works, but we also, to Marty's point too, I mean, it's not our intent at all to be confusing. And I totally acknowledge that it is confusing because there's 2 different work programs kind of moving neck and neck. One is going ahead of us with the CHIP, which again is implementing the housing element. So just to clarify, Diana, what we're proposing through the community plan, let's concentrate on the base zoning. We are allowing 4 units for a 4-plex where today a duplex would be permitted. And through the citywide housing incentive program, the CHIP program, which is still in a draft, and we can share the maps. It sounds like, Dennis, you've seen, so I can share that widely with the group here after the meeting. The draft CHIP ordinance is showing this portion of Topanga as a opportunity corridor 1, which the bonus would allow 5 stories. So just to clarify that.
Perfect.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's an issue. Okay, that's it for my questions.
Susan, you're unmuted. Go ahead. You have your question.
Yeah, my name is Gary. Actually, I'm on Susan's
Sorry,
account.
you're listening to Susan. Okay, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, I wanted to agree with you that I think the proposals along Ventura Boulevard are well overdue. You know, they could have used a facelift, but the areas on Topanga south of Ventura Boulevard, you know, that community there, I lived there for 15 years. I live in Woodland Hills still, but I lived in Del Valle Street for 15 years. And there's a real good sense of community there. And I think changes to the character of that community by putting higher rises and higher density along Topanga, I think it's going to be a detriment to that community. You know, the people love it there right now because of the low-key nature of that neighborhood. And I think building up that neighborhood is not to a benefit to the community that lives there. Anyway, I agree with a lot of what you're saying along Victory possibly and Ventura Boulevard certainly, but on Topanga south of the boulevard, I think if you talk to the people there, they all love their community there and would probably not appreciate a change of character of that community. Anyway, that's all. That was my comment.
Brian, you're up. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, John. Thank you so much. Can you guys see me? Do I need to do anything? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead. You're good.
Okay, perfect. So this question is for Lucy and Priya, and I'd like to use Topanga Canyon Boulevard between Mulholland and Ventura as an example, just to understand what's going on. So right now, most of them are LAR2s. Some of them are single family, some of them are duplexes. And I was wondering, is that zoning going to change? And the next question is 4 units on Topanga Canyon Boulevard going to be the maximum amount of units, or are people going to be able to add more than 4 units?
So the community plan, the draft zoning that we have out in the world at this moment has the zoning changing from R2, so duplexes. And I'm going to speak in our new code, which is we're proposing 4L, which is essentially 4 units, so like a 4-plex. And then in terms of units, or with the bonus, sorry, I will check with what the draft CHIP, because I think that's probably more of an interest at this point than what the draft community plan. I mean, I can share what our base zoning changes in terms of changing it from R2 to essentially 4L. So changing it from duplex, what you could build today, to a 4-plex. But I can follow up with you all after the meeting to share some of the draft chip maps to show you what the bonus is for this portion of
Yeah,
Topanga.
if you ship those over to us, we'll be happy to put them up on our website. So everybody's got links to those as well.
Okay.
So we can do that. Catherine Field, you're available to talk. Go ahead. Question?
Hi, thank you for having the meeting tonight. I want to make certain I understand. For the hillside areas, which are currently zoned R1, first of all, is the zoning changing? And is it changing such that now 4 units of up to 3 stories would be allowed?
No, the hillside area, those are not change areas. There's gonna be, because we're implementing the new zoning code, it's gonna look different than the zoning today, but basically we're kind of carrying over the regulations and the density that exists there today for hillside areas.
So what does that mean?
Basically is what it is today,
So
So-
there's
as closely as we can. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, I live in R1 and I live in the hillside and there's an empty lot next to me. What would they be able to build on the empty lot next to me?
Well, the density is 1L, which is one unit per lot.
So that's not changing?
No, it's like today, right? It's like basically it's single family.
So it's the
on-
presentation today, Lucy just wanted to highlight the areas that are proposed for change. So the areas that we didn't go over essentially are staying the same as is. So we're happy to follow up on a specific site and share with you the draft zoning map so you can see exactly what the regulations are. But to Lucy's point, those areas in the hillsides R1 we're maintaining as is. So we could share more details with you. So you can actually look at the specific parcel you're interested in to show the draft zoning.
Is there a link for that?
Yeah, we can follow up after the meeting with
Okay.
a link to the map for sure.
Okay, thank you.
David, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Is that me?
Yep, go
Oh.
ahead. You're up.
Okay. Dave Genders. I live on Topanga, 54 years. And there have been many changes that kind of are under the radar. And one of them is the number of cars that people park or try to park or park on our side street and then say, well, it's a public street. And we can't even park next to our house. So I think parking has to be a big part of, if you build a fourplex, where are you going to put the cars? Everybody's got 2 cars now. So I just raised that.
That's one of the problems we have too with these bonuses that are going to go on. They're going to be looking to put affordable housing in so they can eliminate some of these parking requirements. That's a problem that we have to deal with the chip issues. It's confusing, I think, to a lot of us, and a lot of us are concerned about that, especially along the Topanga corridor. Any comments to that, Lucy? Or yeah?
Yeah, I agree. It's really changed a lot. And I think part of it is, well, more people drive, and so there's more cars, and I understand that. But we're a single family house, probably the only one in our block. And we don't live with a whole lot of comfort about what happens when you come home from work and you don't have a place to park and so forth. And unfortunately, my house was built in the 40s. And
what's going to be done with the parking over there? What's that look like?
Lucy, do you want to step or mention the parking sets? And then I can speak a little to parking after.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, what happens is that that's actually a benefit of the new zoning string that we have, is that it really allows us to be very kind of like context specific. So so we take into account like areas that have less transit or that they have no transit, then that parking requirements that are higher, right? But there are some state laws that are kind of driving some other, like for example, when they're located in like in TOC areas, then we're not allowed to require parking. But you can actually see in our interactive map, you can see the locations, and sometimes it varies because we look at the context. If there's no other form of transportation, then we have to have higher parking requirements. But I don't know.
Maybe just mentioning what TOC, I saw the acronym and I was like, oh, we used an acronym. So just the TOC is the transit oriented areas. And the state bill that Lucy alluded to is a recent, maybe in the last 2-3 years, AB 2097. So what that state law did is any, is it 1,500? I will double check, vicinity to a transit station or area served by transit, that cities cannot require minimum parking requirements. So what we've seen, and I think I've shared this in other meetings, and people have offered at some projects that are actually not providing any parking, but we've also seen projects, again, it's market driven. So for residential projects, oftentimes people find it difficult to lease units if there is not parking. So in areas maybe that there is not a parking requirement, projects are still providing parking. So
it just can't be mandated as a bottom line to it, but that's what we're worried about on Topanga because it is a corridor at that area. Chris Rowe, you got a question? Go ahead, Dennis, we'll get to you as well.
Oh, no problem.
Getting short on time. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, I'd like to, first of all, Priya, I believe I met you back around 2009 when I attended one of the Warner Center specific plan meetings. And I want to bring an example to you. I live in what's called the Warner Center Specific Plan Neighborhood Protection Plan Zone. In other words, I don't live in Woodland Hills, and you were focused, your map was focused more on Woodland Hills today. So I want to give you a specific address, which is, I believe, 22566 Van Owen. And the problem with that is what they've done is they've taken 2 single family. Now, I live back to back with a 1950s neighborhood. And that was mentioned earlier. A lot of the homes out here, the single family ones, were built in the 1950s. And so the point I'm making is that I hope you're hearing me right now.
We can hear you, Chris.
Yes.
Come on, move on. We're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour then. Come on.
I zoomed away to look at my map to get the address, and I'm not there. There it is. And so the point I want you to understand, I would like you to look at this address, everyone to look at this address, because what they've done is they've taken 2 single family, 1-story homes, converted it in. Currently, it's a preschool, and there's no setbacks. And that's a big concern to me. And so when I moved into my house 46 years ago, I faced an empty lot, which is now a high school. And behind me, literally sharing a common wall, is this preschool. And they have no setback between, really, I think maybe 3 to 5 feet between the back wall and their structure. I actually think they're in violation of fire code. So all these things have to be considered when you're doing this. And so these 10-foot setbacks or these heights are just not appropriate. And I think you need to reconsider that, and the housing that would be affordable for seniors, because you were showing the demographics of population and what income would be required. In my neighborhood, 1950s homes, a lot of them have been taken over by senior living facilities, 6 to 8 residents in one single family 1950s 1-story home, or even I think possibly some housing for people that have been left out of prison or things like that.
I think we're finding also too in all of this is that a lot of these things are rentals. There's no chance for people to have any ownership. They're not homes. They're not complexes for condominiums and what have you. They're rental units. And so what you're doing is you're really putting people in a position to where they're going to have to do rentals from now on these things, and it becomes a bit difficult. Chris, thank you for that. Dennis, a quick question to you. We got about 5 people here. We're running up on the
Sure.
5 o'clock hour. And Scott, we'll get to you too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought we should touch on traffic mitigation. There's all this density that's going to happen, or at least is being zoned to happen. And when we did the Warner Center specific plan, we evaluated, 180 intersections going all the way out to Northridge probably. And there's all these improvements. There's probably, John, you're on the implementation board. There's probably 80 intersections that have to be improved, but when development happens. And now we're proposing essentially this kind of density all the way to Studio City, really. I've looked at the other community plan. You're doing this all the way over to the Universal Studios, So that's the other thing that people have mentioned, and it always comes up, right? Traffic. What's the process?
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, great question, Dennis. We are embarking on our environmental impact report. That is a major component of it. And I just wanted to mention, this is a relatively recent, it is definitely post Warner Center adoption, changes to the California Environmental Quality Act in terms of analysis of traffic. It is now measured by something called vehicle miles traveled, rather than previously where it was LOS, levels of service. So now in terms of what's analyzed, it is what is a long-range plan or a project, in this case, we're talking about a long-range plan, doing to address reducing rather vehicles miles traveled. So a lot of that lends itself to a mix of uses, right? If people, the whole thing of vehicle miles travel is how far do you have to travel for daily services, getting to job, getting, to your house from your job. So it's the idea of having services in a closer area. And, if transit is available, that increases improvements of vehicle miles, helps lessen VMT. So I just wanted to note that that is a little bit of a more recent change in terms of how we evaluate impacts on transportation and traffic. But that will be a significant component of our EIR, which
Lucy and Priya, that we're at the 9 o'clock hour.
Oh.
My question, are you able to continue? Are you able to continue on? You okay?
I think we might be good for 10 more minutes.
Okay,
I know a couple of us have to
I got
log
you.
off. Yeah.
Scott, let's make these real quick. Scott, go ahead real quick. Let's get this. We got a couple of our members that want to get some questions in too. Go ahead, Scott.
All right. Both the issues were touched on, but never responded to. And one of them was, why don't you have people from the neighborhoods, such as a neighborhood council member, as somebody to work with you that could give you insight into the neighborhood, as opposed to creating a blanket for everybody that doesn't work in every neighborhood? You need to have people from the area that can talk to you about it and tell you about it. And the other part was just touched on, again, legacy wealth creates community. It people that own the properties. Why can't you create a bonus, not for height, not for a bonus for a sale, for home ownership, not apartments. Apartments, the only guys that are making any money are the developers, and in some cases the architects. But you have to create family wealth, legacy wealth. The only way to do that is through ownership. And this is not touching on that at all. This is just creating more apartments and more non-community cohesiveness. That's it. I'll let the rest of
Kurt, you're unmuted. Go ahead. Your question.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. We're kind of going away from the home ownership. You can smell it. You can see it happening. And I don't know why this seems to be an abandonment of home ownership. So, but my question is, how did you guys find yourself moving up and adding Topanga into this equation? Because like if one thing doesn't look like the other, that doesn't look like anything else, like Warner Center or Victory or Ventura, which I agree needs a facelift. But how did you guys decide to move up into Topanga and feel the need to have to densify that area?
I think in terms of our changes to the proposed, this is again a draft of the changes to the base zoning for Topanga. Right now it's R2. What we were looking at is just if there's opportunities of introducing some small scale commercial uses. Again, this is like tenants that are no larger than 1,500 square feet. This idea that, you know, you could walk to a corner store, coffee shop. And then the idea is to add additional units. So where you could build 2 units, you could build 4. Now I'll just I'm kind of outside of my lane talking about the CHIP because it is again a different work program. But when I say CHIP, it's the Citywide Housing Implementation Program that is part of one of the implementing ordinances of the recently adopted housing element. They have different qualifications. Topanga is served right now by a transit, I think it's bus, is it 169 Metro bus? There's an existing bus. And then they have other qualifications of areas that are considered opportunity areas. So these are related to the state's tax accreditation map. So it's updated every year, but it's this idea where neighborhoods that have access to higher opportunity, it's higher outcomes, life outcomes, better health outcomes. So access to jobs, health services, parks, things like that, quality schools. So there are other qualifications. And again, a lot of these are to meet state requirements. There's state requirements related to housing, recent housing laws, but also something called affirmatively furthering fair housing. So it's tied to the Fair Housing Act, which has been around for years, but there's some more recent updates. So that's
just be aware this, it looks different than the other areas that you're working on. And I think the question's a fair question about why it was added back in. Doug, you're unmuted too. We're running out of time here. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you. I want to thank Lucy and Prius for talking to us. I especially picked up on the comment, if I heard this correctly, that the bonus 8-story structures based on some low-income units will only be north of Ventura Boulevard. That's going to be news to my neighborhood, which is off Del Marino, across from Taft High School, south of the boulevard, where for over a year we've been struggling against a property owner who is attempting to put exactly this kind of 8-story bonus-based structure in a completely single-family area, an 8-story building towering over the entire neighborhood. He has not been forcefully shut down to our knowledge because it's south of the boulevard. So how can we really trust statements like this that it's not going to be that such a structure won't be allowed south of boulevard when he apparently has viable, he's still in the running. We don't know if it'll be approved or not.
Any comments to that?
I don't know the full details of that project. I'm thinking if it is that size, it might be a state density bonus project, which, you know, there's a process against this state density bonus law. And there is a process of asking for what's called off-menu incentives. They have to go through a process going to city planning commission, and then possibly to council. So I can follow up on that specific site. I'm not familiar with that, but when he's saying the project went a certain level of stories, that might be a density bonus project. But also with our the incentives that we're proposing as well, that Lucy touched on, we have our non-residential incentives, but the housing incentives are for projects that do have a set aside of affordable units. I think,
Time for about 2 more questions here. Marilyn, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, I couple of things. I'm wondering if any of you actually use public transportation. Mayor Bass herself has said public transportation isn't safe or convenient. The LA Times just ran a series of articles about how long it takes to get anywhere. My understanding from what you said is that none of you live in our neighborhood. Lucy herself wanted to buy something and move to Santa Clarita. As a previous gentleman said, why don't you have people from the neighborhood on your commission who understand the community, who understand the fact that we enjoy our single-family homes. And we are very concerned about the change, especially, you know, crowded by multi-story buildings. None of your plans seem to include sufficient parking. Every picture that you showed has cars lined up on the street. And will there be traffic improvements? Are you going to put in traffic lights? Are you going to put in stop signs? Will there be monitoring? Is there any follow-up? I realize I'm throwing out a lot of stuff, but I know that we're running out of time. But it doesn't seem that the planning is made by people who live here, and it doesn't include the whole picture. And public transportation right now is not the answer. If it takes an hour and a half, according to the LA Times, to get to a job downtown from the valley each way, that's 3 hours of commuting. How many people are going to want to rent? Okay, that's my.
Let's get one last question then. Adia, I think you're unmuted. You can go ahead and.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ida. I just have thank you very much, by the way, for doing this. This is amazing. I really appreciate you going through this and putting this for us. But I just have one comment. Would you please stop calling everything affordable housing? It seems like every time the city wants to make a change without us approving it, they call it affordable housing just to make us feel bad and say, sure, go ahead and do it. We are not NIMBYs. We work hard for our homes. We really, really work hard for our homes. We like where we are living. That's why we moved here to this side of the valley. And please don't call everything affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Very good. We got one more quick question here, if we can. This is Jesse. Looks like you can unmute, make it a quick question if you would.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I'm from a different neighborhood, and we're trying to get a meeting like this with the Ladera Civic Association because we have these same changes proposed in our neighborhood. And I was wondering what the process is for getting the meeting with LA City Planning. How can we get a meeting like this with our group?
Just ask, I guess, is really bottom line.
It's what?
Just ask Lucy. Is there a special way? Can I just email you and ask for a chance to have a community meeting like we're having tonight?
Yeah, I think like maybe I will need more details, but like if you could just email me and then maybe I can try to connect you with the right team.
And what is your email?
It's Lucy, Lucy.
Okay, Lucy. Lucy at what?
Martinez at lacity.org.
Okay, lacity.org. Okay.
Yes.
I'll email you.
Listen, this has been a real interesting evening, to say the least, and we're running over time here. We're at 9:15, right on the dot at this point. We thank you all for spending the time, Lucia and Maria, and the questions here. We have some 35 written questions that come in. We haven't been able to get even touch on half of those.
We're happy to answer them, you know, if you want to forward them, and there's a way to get in contact or responses to all the folks that.
Yeah, some of them have been answered, but you've done a great job on trying to give us some information here. We wish that we had a chance to be able to do the overlays with the chip on this. We're going to take a look at that, and for those that are listening, first of all, recognize this is recorded. It'll be up on our website in a couple of days. If you need to go back and refresh some of these things, you can do that. If there's other people that will be interested in it, you can tell them that's where they'll be able to find it at our website, WHHO.com. So we deeply appreciate those of you who are listening that think that we're doing something good for the community and helping us. Join us, please. Join us to help protect our community. You can go over to our website, WHHO.com, and join with us. It's $25 a year for your household. We need your support. We need your input. We need your questions. We need your insights. So please help us with that. Help us to help you as well. So to all of you over at Planning, to Lucia and to Priya especially, I think we still have got, I think David's still online too. I think Kyle's still online too. Listen, thank you all for your help, for your insights, this stuff on it. And I think at this point, I think we can say goodnight to you and thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.